long.
Too long.
Too long.
Wasn't long enough.
Too long.
I was never bored.
When you
never bored.
before you get to the
have
fucking
levels of
credits.
Okay, I was bored. Weird, but okay. Having said all that, I haven't yet landed on whether I don't know whether I'm like right in the like. Did I like this movie? I still don't fucking know. I'm not. There's a lot of Chekhov in this movie, and I'm not familiar enough with Uncle Vanya or I don't know whether a familiarity with that makes this better. Maybe one of you guys can tell me later. I did.
Yes-ish.
I know it's a sad movie, but everybody in this movie, with a couple of exceptions, acts like they're like in some sort of catatonic state. Driver, the main character, some of the supporting characters, like it's like no expression.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, and that
Without
was
affect.
fucking weird, and I couldn't tell if that was intentional. Like, are these just like really dead-eyed line readings, or is the director telling them like, no? It's like kind of like the Killing of a Sacred Deer, where everybody in that movie acts like they're in some kind of weird standing coma.
Yeah.
Very much
A
like
good
that.
comparison. Good comparison, because it's kind of like
it's.
Go ahead.
And but it takes a very, very long time to get to the scene where they're looking at her destroyed house, and that's supposed to be some sort of cathartic moment, I think, for both of them. But it just should have packed a bigger wallet for me, and it didn't.
It made me look up whether or not you could drive from Hiroshima to Sapporo in one day, and you can.
They didn't.
It's 24 hours and one hour, 1 day and 1 hour to drive from one to the other.
It was dark and light and dark and light, I think.
No, that's
Right, and they
that's
took
editing's fault.
They were on a boat.
Because with the ferry ride, it actually takes 24 hours.
Yeah.
You can cross the Honshu in about 9 hours.
And she said, I'll sleep on the ferry.
So, Chris, it's interesting that you bring that up about the line reading and stuff like that. It's very much like the beginning part of when they're doing the play rehearsal, where he's just telling them to read the lines over and over again. Just
Absolutely.
read it. Like back off on the emotion. Just read the lines.
Read
the
Read
lines.
the text.
Yeah.
Right.
And oh man, I think there's a really good movie in here. I just didn't like having to dig as deep for it as they made me. Apparently in the short story that this is based on, there's no preamble. It jumps straight into him in he's not in Hiroshima, he's in Korea, and they had to change the setting, which, by the way, this feels like a COVID movie. So much of this feels like a COVID
You get
movie.
masks at the very end.
Well, no, I'm talking about
Right,
how many people you can have in a room, how close people stand to each other, who interacts with who. But they couldn't set it in Korea. They had to set it in Japan, so they had to change a bunch of stuff for that. But the story of Yusuke and Otto is told during flashbacks during it while they're driving and talking together, and also the interaction he has with Koji. And I just feel like that would have been better. Like, I don't feel like we needed that 40-minute interminable preamble. Like, as soon as it starts with the credits and he's driving to Hiroshima, I'm like, what the fuck is going on? I thought this movie was
By the way, is that a record for the credits are what, 30 minutes into this thing?
Yeah,
40
almost
about
an
a
hour.
half an hour.
40.
Like, that
no,
may be
it's
a record.
40 minutes. I looked at the fucking
That might be a
time code.
record. Yes, that's pretty nuts.
A bold choice.
Bold choice.
Also,
including that it doesn't actually show you the title of the film. It's just credits. No, at the tail. It's at the tail after the last shot.
Also, but it didn't take a translator to know that the wife, who was like, had these erotic fixations on writing this story about the schoolgirl, and it kind of goes in long verbal. It's freaking hentai, man, and she says it out loud several times. And it's like, it's, oh, are these guys sophisticated, intellectual
Well, hentai
types
just
writing a play,
means
or are they
general-
writing Japanese porn? I couldn't tell. It's
There were multiple times during this movie where I felt like this is going over my head. I'm just not getting it. I'm not smart enough, or I'm not clued in enough to understand why this is great.
Why it's
So
doing what it's doing.
It's my problem. I'm not getting it. I'm stupid. I'm unsophisticated. Something's not connecting for me, and it's my fault.
But what do you
For
think of the
me,
linkage
I was
between?
about halfway through the flick, and I said, "God damn, this seems a lot like Murakami." And then I look it up at the end, and of course, it's based on a
Based
Murakami
a short story.
There it is, yeah.
Right.
What do you think about the
Because
link?
I've read like a bunch of his books, and
Yeah.
the character, and in fact, one of the few words in Japanese that I could consistently pick up was boku, which means I, but you have to be a man to say it.
Hmm.
And his first novels are all called boku novels because you never find out who the character is that's
Right.
narrating the entire novel. It's just I all the time.
What do you
But
think the linkage between Uncle Vanya, the Chekhov play, and this film? What do you think of that?
Who's familiar with Uncle Vanya?
Is there one?
I thought it worked, and I liked the idea that they picked a Russian play. Have any of you seen any Chekhov?
I saw Uncle Vanya.
I've read Uncle Vanya.
Yeah.
I've never seen it performed.
I've seen the play
I
put on.
saw the Cherry Orchard, but
It's kind of a domestic drama more than
they are. They're
And I think of Chekhov as kind of playwright's playwright, and Uncle Vanya is a playwright's play.
well, it's his second time with the
Yeah.
story, right? He
Right.
wrote an earlier play,
Mhm.
and he came back later in life to write.
Right.
Well, but and Uncle Vanya is about
And it
unrequited
has
love.
Chekhov's gun in it.
It does.
Oh, that's where it came from.
It's about unrequited love, and it's about obsession, which is what this movie is about. And there are small little things that come into it, including, for example, taking a pencil as a souvenir. Like that's literally something from the play that's in her story that she tells about that. And you could draw some parallels between some of the characters to
So in details, but not in the broad themes. would you
right.
say?
Yeah.
And maybe in broad themes too, because I feel like
But
the
it's
scenes from the play that we saw indicated, regret for the life that the guy lived and over choices made, and
only the broadest of themes.
in the broadest sense. Yeah.
Broadest of themes.
Yeah.
Like
This is
there's-
also a movie very much about storytelling. And I mean, the wife Otto tells stories, and the
Yes.
play is, of course, a told story that everyone's working so hard on.
and
Oh, boy.
everyone tells
boy.
everyone tells everyone else stories through the entire movie. Like the dramaturge has the whole story about how he met his wife and how they came to Hiroshima and how she came to become an actor who's going into this. And then of course the driver has her story about her mom, and
Right.
and then Koji has his story of telling Odo's story back to Yusuke in the car.
That was
And-
incredible, by the way.
That's the best part of the movie.
Yeah, it was.
100%.
Mhm.
But so that brings me to a question that I have, and I want to know what everybody thinks about this. Yusuke says in the beginning of that scene that everything that she worked on, she slept with an actor from it.
Yes.
Mhm.
Do you think that's true? Or is he just saying that to get
To draw
Koji
out,
to admit
right.
that he slept with her, because he wouldn't admit it before that?
No,
And by
didn't,
saying-
really.
And by saying you're not special, you're just one of the ones who she slept with,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it makes him be like, oh well, you stayed with her, which means you really loved her, which means she
So
really
what-
loved you. And
That
so
that scene walks an incredible line of neither of them confronting the other with the truth, and yet both of them know exactly what's
soon
being
as-
said.
as soon as he starts to say, no, this happened, that this is who the
Yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
As soon as he says this is who the intruder was, and Yosuke's like, what?
Yeah.
Like he
You
didn't
know,
even
you know more than I do.
No,
Right.
that
Yeah.
line where he says that all the scenes she came up with was what the men he slept with in the various productions she worked on. He had 2 years after she died to kind of let this kind of come to light. And so I thought he was speaking from truth. He wasn't trying to score on this guy. It's like, you're just a nobody, one of among many. I think that he was just simply just confessing that this
Well,
is.
I'm not saying score on him. I'm
Yeah.
saying
Uh-huh.
I'm saying get him to tell him what he knows.
Mhm.
Like an
Yeah.
interrogation technique.
Mhm.
Like making him feel like he wasn't special would mean that he would tell him something because he didn't think it was important.
Well, that's the thing. That's what I'm saying. I don't think it was that. I think he was being straightforward, and his confession was more or less genuine, not pushed or, kind of like, he wasn't trying to intimidate the guy. He was trying to get an honest answer out of him. I don't think he had any animus at all towards the guy. I think he was just trying to get an honest answer out of him, because
He does early on, which is why he's so hard on him.
well, that's true. That's part of it. But
Mhm.
later
That's
on,
what
I
it
think
makes
it's
him
often-
Uncle Vanya.
In fact,
Well,
he's
shit, yeah, right.
That character
He cast him.
yeah.
That
Well,
may
that's-
have been an aggressive act right
Oh,
there.
the removal of that kid because he was like his past, like killing somebody, was a Deus Ex Machina double feature, man. That was nuts. Like, well, I get rid of this kid here, and this brings me to a point. I at the end of the film, I think this film, although it was based on a story, I realized that was written backwards. I think that whoever directed it, the guy directed it, or whoever directed it, had a couple of good gimmicks. One, having this lead character being dragged away for murder. And the other one was that incredible scene with a deaf woman doing Sonia, and just nailing it, with all the sign language. Because
she nails it in the audition,
well,
and she nails it on stage.
No, I thought when she was doing it on the audition, we were kind of like, how is this going to work? Because everyone's kind of like,
Yeah.
how is this going to work in a play?
Well,
where
we were set up properly for that because we saw the other play being performed with all the different language subtitles.
The
yeah, the
flashing
super
on the
titles. Yeah,
screen.
I know that. But the
So
thing
we
is,
knew, they could do this.
Yeah.
They've already done this, basically.
Yeah,
but the director was working the audience a bit. He was talking like, well, how are they going to make this work with multiple languages in there? And then the thing, she came in and just blew everybody away. I thought it was just an incredibly wonderful scene, but I think that's the scene the director started with and worked backwards with. It's like, this is the great scene that's going to really bring this thing over the top. Everything else is kind of preamble to it. And that's probably why he had so much slack in the first half of the film.
Well, it is based on a short story, so it's not like it was.
Again, I'm not
out of,
comparing mediums here. This came out of a screenplay. Let's talk about the movie.
My point is that it wasn't like I thought of this scene and I wrote the screenplay around it. There was existing material. There was source material.
Directors interpret short stories a lot of different
I don't
ways.
know. I don't know if the subplot about the sign language and all that is in the movie or is in the
Yeah,
short
I
story.
think so.
I don't know.
That's the thing.
The short story's 40 pages long. Like
Yeah.
it's
Right.
Yeah, I think
And the short story is basically that he hires her to drive because he had a DUI. They lost his license.
Mhm.
And they just drive around and he tells her about these things.
Also, the logic of
That makes way more sense than we are not allowed to let you drive.
the
your own
logic was really tortured.
Yeah, a little bit.
way more sense.
Yeah.
the logic in a lot of this is tortured. Like not just that. Like that is one of the problems with it being as long as it is it allows you to meditate on like what people are doing and why they're doing it.
Yes.
Like it doesn't, you don't have that moment of being like, well, something's already out, something else is already happening, so I have to pay attention to that. So I'm not going to think too hard about what just happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, he amplified the story, and he got rid of like a lot of what Murakami is known about. I have a quote here actually.
Excellent. I love it when people bring out quotes.
That I'd like to read. It's real short, but it gives you the flavor.
I have a manifesto to read now.
Yes.
Continue.
This is Murakami speaking at UC Berkeley.
Oh wow.
My style boils down to this. First of all, I never put more meaning into a sentence than is absolutely necessary. Second, the sentences have to have rhythm. That is something I learned from music, especially jazz. In jazz, great rhythm is what makes great improvising possible. It's all in the footwork. To maintain that rhythm, there must be no extra weight. This doesn't mean that there should be no weight at all, just no weight that isn't absolutely necessary. You have to cut out the fat. But, there's like no music. There's some diegetic music in the thing
Yeah.
at one point.
Yeah, the turntable
The
movie.
turntable, like when
There's
they're fucking.
some non-diegetic music in it, and it's kind of a weird smooth jazz.
Is it?
um,
Okay.
Yeah.
He
At
wanted
one
to
point-
use-
It didn't stick with me.
He wanted to use "Drive My Car" by the Beatles in this. He literally wanted to
Oh,
use
really?
that, and I cannot
Really?
imagine how you
Where?
could possibly.
Well,
No, it wouldn't
I
fit.
was hoping against
It
all
wouldn't
hope
fit
that
in
they
a
would
single
use-
second of this movie. Not
Not-
one.
They would use
One
Yellow
moment.
Magic Orchestra's cover of "Drive My Car."
That would have been okay.
Yeah.
So
Although I
it's
could see,
interesting.
like, a-
It's interesting that you bring that up, Jim. That quote, though, because he was interviewed in the New York Times and he said that he loves this translation of the story.
Yeah.
So
Oh, okay.
I
You love. What do you mean?
No.
This filmic adaptation?
Plus,
yeah,
you
Yeah.
know,
All right.
he
I'm a big dummy. I watch Michael Bay movies. I didn't get it.
Okay,
I
well,
don't
Chris,
think it
let
was
me
that
let me
complicated.
follow up. Let me follow up on that by saying I wasn't bored. I didn't know what to expect going in to this film.
Neither did I.
Except all I knew was that it was from Japan and it was an Oscar nominee for Best Picture, and that people seemed to like it.
And there are no giant robots in it.
It had no giant robots.
Multiple
no
award nominees.
no kaiju.
this movie would have been better if all of a sudden a kaiju came through. At the end.
Oh, it would have been so awesome.
I don't disagree.
Surprise!
I don't disagree with what Chris is saying, but I feel like I was able to. It's interesting. A lot of the conversation we're having is what we bring to this film. And I think it has that quality where some of these kind of slower paced films have, where it's like your reaction can kind of be what you want to get out of the film.
Boredom?
It's almost.
Well, I wish I'd watched this first because
Hold on,
I wasn't
hold on, hold
already
on.
mad. If I wasn't already
Yeah,
mad
take
at
it, John.
That's
Well,
Life
you
for
finish the
wasting
thought.
my time, I might have been less mad at this movie for wasting my time.
So it's Blake Edwards and my fault.
Paris,
It's entirely your
Texas.
fault.
Exactly.
Paris,
Let's
Texas
put the blame where it belongs.
Right. There's the clip.
is a similar vibe to this movie, is it not?
As
Yes.
to what?
I beg
Paris,
your
Texas
pardon.
is to this.
This is
Yeah.
absolutely nothing like Paris, Texas.
Oh, I
don't-
disagree.
No,
Oh,
Oh no,
why?
I disagree.
no,
that I
no,
think
no,
I think it is.
I think
It
it's a
does have a
lot
similar
like-
Wait,
vibe.
wait.
Five,
Chris,
definitely.
let Chris connect the
No,
dots
no,
here.
I think that Paris, Texas, like this, is unhurried.
Yeah.
It's taking its time. It allows you to meditate on what everybody, like the things that are happening, and like there's a lot of room to breathe, right? And it all sort of builds up to, I think in this case, there's a couple of, it's the scene in the car with the younger actor who's like, I don't know, like a Justin Bieber or something, but also the scene at the end with the driver in front of her mom's house, right?
Yeah.
Paris, Texas has one, if not two of those kinds of scenes that are supposed to like kind of close the loop on everything we've been absorbing up until now. And like I think the intention is for some kind of an emotional wallop to happen.
Right.
You know what?
I struggled with, like, I felt like I was being teed up for that.
I never
just
felt the
wasn't
emotional wall.
feeling it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We might have missed it. It might have been a cultural thing, but Chris, I'm gonna say that's a interesting insight. That that Wim Wenders was kind of expressing it in the same way that. Hold on, I got the name in a
It's
second.
a lot of, like, there's also a
Teresa
lot of
Yamamoto.
driving in both
Yamamoto.
movies.
What's that?
I'd like-
A lot of driving in both of these movies.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of unresolved issues that you have with your ex.
I feel like Chris,
Exactly.
in the silences of this film, I felt like it was doing more maybe than Paris, Texas was doing in the same running time.
Got it.
To kind of complete my thought, I have a really hard time talking about this film, but I liked this film a lot. And the scene with the young actor, Koji,
Uh-huh.
and Yasuke and in the car together when he completes the story that his wife told,
Completes.
maybe, or at least takes it further.
Right. Takes it
further.
further.
Right. Because the ending is incredible. The original ending that he knows, the husband knows, is that somebody's coming up the stairs and her whole life up to that point is over because
Right.
someone's going to find her there. And
Yeah.
thank God, because now it's going to be something else. That's an incredible ending.
Sure.
And now we
It's
have a new
interesting
ending.
because the story that she tells, one of the short stories in the collection that this is from, and that he actually used some stuff from, is
Wow.
called Scheherazade.
Ah,
And Scheherazade is the woman who
telling the stories.
tells the never-ending story because she doesn't want to be killed, right?
Killed.
Right.
Because he always
Executed.
kills the woman at the end of their stories. And
Right.
at one point, she tries to start telling the same story, her own story. And he's like, no, none of that, none of that.
You told that one already.
So
Yeah,
I-
right. I know this is just going to be an endless.
Well, I'm with Chris in that I felt sometimes like I wasn't smart enough. Maybe I'm missing some of the Uncle Vanya connections, but I loved this.
yeah,
I love this, and I can't explain why it made me feel the things I did entirely, but I felt a lot of things.
There's just something about people, and it seems to be people who work in the film or play industries, the theater, that they're incapable of, they all have no affect and they're incapable of expressing any of their emotions
Except
unless
on
they're
stage.
on stage.
Yeah.
Until they're there, until they're doing that.
There's
Yeah,
that,
because he breaks down, right? He breaks down at the beginning of the movie and he breaks down at the end of the movie playing Vanya
On stage, right?
on stage. Yes.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
this was kind of like a hipster parade. It's like the part for me. It's like the hipster character with the turntable thing and like the perfect apartment and like
Hold on.
Hold on. Let me finish. 1987 Saab Turbo. All these little details.
That's the
Yeah,
part
all
of
these
this movie is that
details.
car.
These guys are like a very much aesthetes. They're very much like
They're
Yes,
he's
take it.
50 years old and she's 49 years old. They come by this. They've been together for over 20 years. They come by this organically. Like,
Oh, I'm not
like-
going to argue about turntable films again with you, but I will.
The car
Again-
was the MVP of this movie.
again, like if you're
The
50,
car in the book is yellow,
if you're and it's a convertible.
and it's not a turbo.
It's just got a sunroof. That's it.
Yeah.
But-
Saabs are solid cars, man.
I did like the scene with them with the cigarettes up the sun.
That was kind of fun. Like
Behind
that one
John.
right there. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
So something Chris said about the lack of affect, the feeling that every
Levi said that.
yeah, you defined it with that term, but Chris said, why is everybody walking around like a zombie or whatever he said? I wonder if there was a crucial moment early in the story where he has to go back home. He thinks he's going to catch the plane, and he goes home and catches his wife, having the affair. And there's that moment, that screenwriter moment, where you're like, what does my character do now?
Leaves the room.
He quietly left and shut the door without slamming it, so they would never know, because he confessed later in that other scene, he said, I didn't want my life to change.
Right.
So I just snuck out and pretended that I didn't see it.
And you only find out towards the end that, yes, that's the reason he did it, because he knows about her fucking.
Right. So it's a
Left her
character, it's a
anyway.
character defining moment.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like that lack of affect, that's completely that was
Yeah.
his choice. And it's almost like, I don't know if it's the Japanese culture, but to me, it's like, it's a lot like the British stiff upper lip.
Yes.
It's like,
Well,
we're
you're not
going
supposed to
to
show
that's
emotion.
probably what's going on. Yes.
No.
we're going to pretend everything's fine, because it's
Yeah.
so unpleasant to admit that we're upset.
Right.
It's better
And
to
that's-
just carry on.
The thing I'll give this movie credit for is that the characters consistently subverted my expectations in terms of what I thought their behavior would be.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
That's
They
true.
they were always like, I thought they were going to zig, and they zagged, and that was one example.
Interesting.
I'd like to just swing back to what Chris said real quick about Paris, Texas. Is the thing, it's going to be a somewhat convoluted analogy, but have you ever seen anyone explain the expansion of the universe where you take a rubber band and you put a bunch of paper clips on it, you pull the rubber band apart,
Sure.
and no matter which rubber band you focus on, everything's moving away from it?
That's right.
Yeah.
Like nothing's as long as your point
you do dots in a balloon and expand it that way.
yeah, as long
Blow
as
up
your
the balloon.
point of reference is fixed, everything moves away from it.
That's
It's only
right.
when you observe it from outside
the-
that you can see that everything's moving away from everything else.
That's the isotropic theory. Yes.
Right. That's what both of these movies feel like to me, is they exist in that expansion of the universe. Like the world is somehow getting bigger for these characters. Like even if that's just in an emotional place or in maybe an understanding of their own life place,
Mm-hmm.
which is something that I did appreciate about both of them, but I also felt like both of those movies were too long. So I don't know. It may just be that I don't necessarily like that filmmaking technique or language of that stretching, but I definitely understand where Chris is coming from saying that it's like that, because I had that same feeling of being like, any paperclip that I look at, the world is moving away from it.
Right. No, I'm going to kind of crystallize that because it's actually a really interesting idea.
I do too. My
the main
my
character-
25 cents.
Yeah, the main character and the driver and a couple of the characters, their universes are expanding. The event horizon is receding,
Right.
and in their lives, because we had our main character start out with a very small universe, him and his wife. And she died. He had to go out into the large universe, and the edges expanded out. More people got inside of the zone of observation for him, and you see his universe expand. And like I said, the driver, I think, is a secret owner of the film. Her universe expands too. She's not just a driver who goes around. At the end, you could see that she's reached this amazing level of satisfaction in terms of like where she wants to be in the world. She's ended up with a Saab and a dog. She loves dogs,
Right.
and back home in Korea, the whole 9 yards. And that is a theme, and Tad nailed it in terms of like that. This is about some people's lives expanding out and learning new things, and some people maybe are just peripheral characters in it. But well done. It's good. It's a good observation.
I don't know if that's an accurate reiteration or crystallization of what Ted said. We are getting so hypothetical out in the stratosphere here.
This is already a way more interesting conversation than
This
last.
film kind of begs it, really.
But because Scott, in way, your metaphor is more inclusive. It's like his world's expanding, the universe is expanding because people are coming into it. I feel like his
song about this topic.
his thesis is his statement in the car to Koji.
Is it every
He says-
sperm is sacred?
Yeah,
No, the universe is
he realizes
expanding,
that
expanding, and
you can
expanding.
love someone, but the only person you can actually know maybe is yourself, no matter how much you love that other person. And so that's the expansion of the universe. It's like, I'm alone. That's the realization.
Well, you're
And-
saying is
and-
the main character's
Well,
realization.
and he
in the
doesn't
film
want
is-
the universe to expand because
No, he doesn't.
wants it to stay the same.
No, he actually is forced into this. That's the
Yes.
thing. Yeah. Uh-huh.
No,
Who
I
thought
think
he
the
was gonna
best.
end up with her.
He dies.
Also, just
What's
just
the
to bring-
question, Chris? Wait.
I was like, who thought that they were going to end up together?
not
They did.
once, not once.
Not
Totally
once.
They
universe.
did. She's driving his car. She's got a dog. I assume
I
they're
did
together
not.
now.
You're
Assume
making
that
a
meant they
big
were
assumption there.
I assume he said you get to keep the car, and he jumped off the ferry on the way back.
Yeah,
Or something
did
like
not-
it.
I did not.
I thought he
assume
just
that
died of an
ended up with him.
aneurysm. and
No,
she
he did
found
it. He did a Firesign Theater thing. He moved into a tree, cut the soles off his shoes, and learned how to play the flute. Basically, thing is, also the ending, and just to be silly again, the ending is basically stolen from Terminator, right? Sure. Cool
yeah.
car, dog, driving down a freeway. Come
Yes.
on. The La Tormenta. Come on. It's the same movie, right?
This movie is.
Yeah, this is the
Oh, I'm waiting
Terminator.
for
You
Drive
nailed it.
My Car too.
Perfect. Yeah.
I'm grasping at straws here.
Rise of the Machines.
This is the weirdest conversation about any movie I think we've ever had.
Wrapped in a riddle, wrapped in a conundrum, and I don't know.
Wrapped in a
See, with
flaky pastry
wrap
crust.
around the outside with the nori.
Yeah, it's a beef Wellington.
It's a bit-
It's a steak wrapped
Or
in a
yeah,
crust.
wrapped in seaweed, right?
Yeah,
I did not hate
Exactly.
this movie. I don't know if I like it, but I did not hate this movie.
I would not be
I
upset if it
liked
wins
it.
Best Picture. I don't understand it, but
I liked it. I liked it a lot. I don't
liked
think
it
you have
too.
to
Wait, hold
understand
on.
movies to
Jim,
like
you
them.
go.
Jim's Corner.
Jim's Corner.
No, seriously, it's I mean, part of it, the whole director, the way he like wants everybody to just read without, I'm trying to remember where I've seen that before, but I know I have seen that before.
Yeah.
That, you know, it's like, don't read, don't put anything into it.
Stop
I just want
acting.
you to read it.
Stop
Well,
acting.
actually, Kubrick is like that, right? Because he would make people do 60 takes because by the time they got to the end of the 60 takes, they weren't acting. They were just pissed with him.
Right.
They're trying to keep up. Although the technique he had for having everyone say their line and knock on the table,
I liked that.
I had wished I'd remembered that when I used to do table reads, because that's a very clever idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Well, it probably is essential when you don't understand the language. The other
Right.
actors-
And the
That's
other,
true. That's true. That's a very good idea, though.
And
I
I just
will.
wanted to say that I saw Bertolt Brecht's Good Person of Szechuan done with the chick from the one who won the Academy Award for being deaf and doing her part.
Marley
Matlin?
Matlin?
Marley Matlin.
Yeah, Marley. And she did the main character. And so basically it was her doing signing, and then she had a person next to her that did the dialogue in English.
Oh, okay.
And
Wow.
so it's kind of reminded me of that. You know, Berkeley Rep did it, you know, maybe Murakami saw it.
Well, this didn't. The thing is that bit at the end with the deaf. Actually, she was just mute. She could hear fine. She just couldn't talk.
Right.
Was just, I thought, a great culmination. It kind of brought me into liking this film
Uh-huh.
because it was just so amazingly clever. I just wish that every driving scene was removed and burned, because it's like there was a lot of time fillers. There's a lot of space wasting. There's a lot of like, a producer could have said, cut. This could have been 90 minutes long.
It's a road
I feel
flick.
like it's like Enemy Mine. They have to have a bunch of driving scenes.
Wait a minute,
in
I thought it was
because
Terminator.
It's called Drive My Car. So if you don't have a bunch of driving
Driving
scenes
in
in
cars,
it, no
it's
one will
not-
know what the fuck it is. So in Enemy Mine, they have
So-
to have
so-
they have
so
to have a
80 wait.
mine so that you
Yeah.
understand why the title is Enemy Mine.
So wait, the movie 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. What's it about?
Yeah, right. Throw
nine
Mama
heads
off
in
the
a double
train.
bag
What happens in that
Who's
film?
the
Wait,
usual
what's it about?
suspects? Who are the
Okay,
usual
I
suspects?
think we better pull it down to earth and get some thumbs. And what do you think?
I
no,
like it.
I'm right here.
Oh,
Right here.
okay. Interesting
here.
ideas.
I'm on the
Wasted
fucking fence.
time. I'm kind of like here. Mm.
I laughed, I cried.